This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp and Modern Fertility. Thank you for making our show a possibility.
Welcome to If These Ovaries Could Talk. I'm Jamie.
I'm Robin.
And we're your hosts.
We sure are.
Love is love, and you don't have to make a family by taking a traditional route. If these ovaries could talk, they would say.
How do I get the sperm through custom?
I am a lesbian.
So gay.
So gay. We need to tell our stories.
It's not your nuclear family anymore. It's not just your mom and dad thing.
We're not ruining these little humans.
Not for the gay reason. Just because we stay. Jamie, I'm laughing because Jamie, if you all could see her right now, it just keeps turning to the right because she's got this new dog that I don't know why she got it, number one. And number
I
two.
don't either. Because she needed a home.
Right,
That's why I got
okay.
her. She needed a home. What am I going to say?
Number
No.
two, she keeps turning to the side because she's afraid the dog's about to pee on the floor. And like, I went over there to record with Jamie on Thursday. And every time I turned around, the dog was like eating something or throws. I was like, hey, Jamie, is the dog supposed to be eating that wee pad? And she was like, no.
She just ate the wee pad just right when you were saying that.
She's like, no. Like you were all beat up and like dejected.
Every time I come home, it's just like a graveyard of things she's chewed up. Like, and I lock everything up. There she is. I have to make sure all the doors are closed and locked because she knows how to open them. So I have to put a chair in front of one of the doors because she can open that one. And that's where all the kids.
Why did you do this to yourself? You just got to get 2 kids in elementary school.
All the shoes go in the bathroom, except I forgot to close the bathroom this morning. So when I came home, she had chewed up my snow boot. She has already ruined like at least 5 shoes.
And the funny part is the couple days before this, Mary and I were like, should we get a dog for our son? Like, is it time? And then I went over to Jamie's and I sent a picture of the dog like tearing through the wee pad and I sent it to Mary and I was like, no, we're not getting a dog.
It's a lot of work, but she's sweet. But she's literally chewing my rug up right now. She's chewing my rug.
All right. So
Kira, stop. Okay. Oh my God.
So we have some very exciting news for you all. I mean, we think it's exciting. Now, whether or not you'll think it's exciting or not is another question, but we've got 4 new merch designs, including one that features none other than our assistant, Helen.
She's very flattered.
Yes.
In a very Helen way that she's been featured on one of our
I don't
t-shirt
look like
designs. That. But the truth is she really
totally
does.
Looks exactly
Complete
like that.
With the cigarette and the I Hate Mondays cup. That is Helen in a nutshell.
And the design says, roll the tape, Helen. It's amazing. It's a showstopper.
It's really great. And our other designs are really cool as well. Pride is always around the corner. Every day is Pride. So you might as well wear something that shows your queer parent pride or whatever you want it to be.
Yes.
Right?
And,
so go
and your ovaries talk love. I mean, why not? 2 birds, 1 stone. 2 birds, 1 stone.
The beauty about our online store is we have all these designs and you can put the design on any products
color
that
t-shirt you want. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's all kinds of stuff. There's hoodies, there's t-shirts, there's tank tops, there's everything. There's laptop
It's amazing.
cases, anything you want, anything you can think of. So go get creative and put the design on, and then you're gonna represent.
Just head over to ovariestalk.com and there's a shop tab, and that's where you're gonna find it. So go do that. All right.
Go do that. Go get those designs.
And then I do have to ask one other question of our listeners. Do you folks want to help us make content for LGBTQ families? Do you? Do you want to join our Patreon community and do just that? What do you think, Jamie?
You do.
Should they?
I think they should.
Why?
That's because you're going to get bonus content there.
That's why.
Yeah. And at the gestational carrier level, you see what we did there? We named the levels after, fertility things. You're going to get video interviews of most episodes, except the ones where Robin forgets to put the screen in what is it called? Like
conversation landscape? Or whatever.
Conversation?
No, I had it. Whatever it was, it was just you. I don't know.
The last video was just my big face in the screen.
So I was like, Jamie, we're covered. We always say most interviews. That one's not going up.
That one's not going up because it's
but the
just
rest of
my
them.
Big ugly mug just talking and listening to people talk on the other end. You can't even hear them because the sound is in my earphones.
It was one of our first records back, and I just haven't done it with multiple people in a while.
Yeah, you're not used to being in the room with someone. That's what happened.
That's right. When I do it.
Anyway,
just go to patreon.com/ovariestalk and you can join our group. You're going to help us make content in all seriousness. It's a wonderful thing to do to help us make this content. So
Yes, thank you for
let's
that.
just, we've been like very chatty today. Let's move
Very
on to our
chatty.
intro of our guest, Ash.
I have been excited to share this episode ever since we spoke with Ash.
Yes.
Much like many folks we bring in nowadays, Ash listens to our podcast, and Ash did not hear their story told. And so Ash reached out and said, I need to tell my story. And we said,
we were
yes,
like,
you
yes,
do.
please. Yes, please.
Please come
Yes,
on
please.
in. Let's do it.
Yeah. And Ash is non-binary and solo poly, which I learned. I didn't know what that was before this interview, which I think it's always cool that we're always learning new things.
Always.
And
always.
Ash is walking down the single parent by choice route. And also, by the way, totally cool and British. So there's that
I
too.
mean, so cool.
Helen,
Okay, Helen, we know. Okay,
please.
Helen. Roll the tape, Helen. Helen's not real, you guys. We don't have
Helen's
an
a turd.
assistant.
Helen's a turd. And guess what? We've been talking. We've been in secret talks with Helen's sister, Edna. And we might be bringing Edna in to replace Helen. But we're going to keep you
Don't tell
posted on
Helen.
that.
Don't
Okay.
tell
All right.
Okay.
Hi, Ash.
Hi, Ash.
Hiya.
Welcome.
It's so nice to see you.
Oh, thanks so much.
You're coming all the way from
London, and I'm in the
London.
UK. Yeah. Far away.
And we should tell everyone Ash is a listener who reached out to us and was like, I haven't heard my story told. And we were like, do you want to tell it? But, like, if anyone ever says that, we're always like, how about you tell it?
because you're going to tell it better than anybody else. It's your story.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So should we jump right into the elevator pitch about what your story is? Are you prepared for the elevator pitch?
Yeah, as prepared as I think I can be.
You got this,
All
Ash.
right. I'm getting the stopwatch together.
All right,
And-
give me a go.
all right. On your mark. Get set. Go.
All right, so I'm Ash. I'm a bisexual, non-binary, single parent by choice, based in the UK. So yeah, I've wanted to raise kids for as long as I can remember, but I identify as solo polyamorous. So a romantic relationship isn't really the model that works for me to parent in. And so yeah, about the start this year, I started the process to conceive on my own, using a known donor, one of my closest friends, and I'm now 26 weeks pregnant. And that's exactly 30.
You
Good job.
nailed it.
Also, not to like blow steam up your ass, but you seemed so calm and collected that whole time.
Jamie, why steam and not smoke?
Because I always mess one word up. Have we met, Robin? That is what I do. I mean, but you were so everybody. You know, most people get like, "Hi, my name's Jamie, and I am a lesbian," and but you were, lean back, relax.
Yeah.
My favorite part is that Ash is leaning back and it has the microphone in front of them, and it almost looks like it's sitting on the belly, which is like I love. That's the
Well,
best
I was
part.
just saying, it's like there's no comfortable position to sit in when you're pregnant. It
No.
turns out it's
No.
just the whole thing is incredibly uncomfortable. So I'm just making it
Oh.
work.
My first, I remember, and my second, I remember just like that sitting off to the side, like trying to get on the right sit bone or the left sit bone, because it felt like I was sitting on a head. It was just
Oh
like,
my
I was like,
God.
is this baby going to fall out?
Yeah.
Oh
Some-
God.
Yeah.
Sleeping was hard for me until I got that big maternity pillow. Have you had? You have
yeah,
one
I
of
do
those?
have one. Yeah, and that's really helped.
help.
But
Those
for me,
help.
it's like anything sitting hunched forward, like driving is so excruciating. Like kind of leaning forward and your ribs crunching and yeah, it's a whole. Turns out it's just really hard to be pregnant.
There's a human inside of you.
They're
Right?
taking up
Literally.
so much
I
space and
know.
squish. And I just picture them like yawning and pushing my organs off
yeah,
to the side.
Exactly.
That's how I picture it.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. So let's dig in because
Yeah, I feel like we have to start with the polyamorous and the non-binary and all of that stuff. Like, because I feel like you might have said some words or phrases that aren't necessarily native to everyone. You
Sure.
think you can walk through some
I
of
think
that?
there was a
Brooke?
solo polyamorous in there.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
right. Yeah. So I'm solo polyamorous, which kind of means for me, I mean, it means lots of different things for different people, but for me, it kind of means that so I have romantic relationships. I sometimes date more than one person at once. My partners have other partners, so that's the kind of polyamorous aspect of it. But for me, I guess I'm quite independent in those relationships. So I don't like to enmesh my life. So I don't like to share finances or live together. So I live, at the moment I live with housemates, but don't live with partners. And so it's also kind of, romantic partners aren't the most important thing. So I have lots of important people in my life. Some of them might be romantic connections, some of them might be sexual connections, some of them might be friendships, family. And so it's kind of decentralizing that romantic relationship is how it works for me.
Okay.
Does that mean that it will always be like that? Or does that mean like that's where you're comfortable? Like, can you expand a little on that?
So, I mean, I have no idea how I'll be in the future. You know, you can never know. Like, I'm totally open to meeting a romantic partner for whom, and it just happens to work for both of us, that we decide to live together or we decide to parent together or whatever. But as it is, and I've been solo poly for about 5 or 6 years now, it's just always been the way that it works really well for me. It works for the partners that I've been with. They have their own stuff going on. Yeah, so the romantic relationships are really important to me. I love being in romantic relationships, but it's kind of, that's not the most important thing in my life, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
it does.
It does. And I wonder, obviously, because life is always changing. You never know where you're going to be in 10 minutes, let alone 10 years. But like in a world where the accepted norm is falling into romantic relationships, that is the accepted norm, right? Like that's
or monogamous.
And monogamous. Yeah. How did you realize this about yourself, and how did you come to embody this?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think so. I was in a long-term monogamous relationship for about 7 years until I was 24 or 25. And I left that relationship not because I wasn't in love with the person anymore. It was because I felt too restricted by that model. And I wanted to be able to explore my sexuality and kind of just be a bit more independent and on my own. And then I found a community in London that most people are poly in my community. It's a big queer community here. And I just felt like I really fit in, and it's brilliant. And as soon as I kind of understood that it was possible to do it like that, it made a lot of sense. In the same way that when I discovered that non-binary was a thing, I was like, oh my God, okay. Suddenly I understand things. Yeah. So same with bisexuality as well. Like when I discovered that you could be attracted to people of more than one gender, I was suddenly like, oh my gosh, that makes sense why I keep being like, but I'm not a lesbian, but I fancy women, and it's really confusing and I don't know. So it's just, I think it was finding those terms, finding that it's possible, and then realizing I feel good. That's right.
Right. The community and the examples.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. I was wondering, when you saw yourself in that community, then you saw it was possible.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I just saw that other people were doing it, and I wasn't weird for not necessarily wanting monogamous.
You were like, oh, that feels right.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. I just felt, okay, this is something you can do. And also the fact that there are lots of people out there, you know, there are people to date that want the same thing. I'm not in this world of like dating people and they're like, oh, you don't want to settle down, so we can't date. Most of the people that, you know, it very rarely comes up that it's a problem that I'm solo poly, because most of the people I date are also solo poly. So it kind of just works.
It just goes to show how important community and representation is.
Yeah. And where did you find that community?
Just living, it took me a long time living in London. Like I lived in London for a couple of years before I found community. And until that point, I hated London. I was like, why do people live here? And now I'm like, okay, no, it makes sense.
Now you can't leave. Now you're in it to win it.
I never thought I'd raise kids in the city ever. Like I grew up in a small town. I couldn't imagine raising kids in the city. And yet here we are, like raising kids in the city.
Going. Here you go. But you said something when you were talking about you had been in a long-term monogamous 7-year relationship. Yeah. You said you felt restricted. And just for folks who might kind of be having these same kind of feelings but not able to put a finger on what they're feeling, what do you mean by you felt restricted? What were you feeling that opened your eyes to the fact that you needed to find a different kind of relationship for yourself?
I mean, at the time, I think a lot of it was my sexuality. So the person that I was dating for that long time was a man, and I just hadn't been able to properly explore like I'd actually came out as a lesbian when I was like 15, and that was like, you know, I just started to explore it, and then at 17 I just randomly fell in love with this guy, and I was like, I'm sorry, just so you know, I'm a lesbian, so we're not going to be able to do this. Like, this is going to be like, and he was like, okay, but let's just try. And I was like, okay. And then actually, you know, I totally fell in love with him because, you know, I am bisexual. I can totally fall in love with men. And it was great. It was a wonderful relationship. We're still really close. But I just felt that this was a huge part of my identity and my experience that I just wasn't exploring at all. And so like, it was a very difficult decision, you know, lots of like sad conversations. And
that had to be, because society tells you when you meet a person you fall in love, you should stay with that person, and you should be with them forever or whatever. Yeah. I mean, so that must have been tough to be like, I love this person, but yet I think I need to go do this.
Exactly. Yeah, it was really, really tough, especially because there wasn't actually a problem in the relationship that meant that we shouldn't be together anymore. But it was just that I couldn't just be in that, and he was not open to non-monogamy at all, so it just wasn't a you know match. If he had been open to non-monogamy, we may still be together, you know. I would be dating other people but also be dating him, but that just wasn't an option in that relationship.
I just had a realization of, first of all, how brave you are, Ash, for going deep inside and finding this within yourself, and then being brave enough to say it out to the world. Because while you're saying this, you're talking about how you did fall in love with him. You can fall in love with a man. This is who you are. I personally, I can fall in love with a man too, but I'm always afraid to say that because no, I'm a lesbian, and I can't say that because people aren't going to respect me now. It takes a lot of bravery to just own exactly who you are and go forward with that. And there's a huge spectrum. I don't even know how I identify, but I know I fall in love with men because I have.
Yeah.
You know, but I know also I identify, I'm a lesbian. I don't know, you know, but being able to explore that and actually put your foot down and say, this is it. This is where I'm going to go. It takes so much bravery, and I'm not as brave as you. That's what I just learned.
But I think it's really tough because there is so much biphobia around. Like, I've really come up against it as somebody who is just, and I'm now totally comfortable with my bisexuality. Like, it, and finding that has been so nice because I know, like, it really does describe who I am and how I'm attracted to people. But there is just so much, like, I'm always nervous if I go into like lesbian spaces. I'm always nervous and sometimes I don't gender, you know. At the start of this interview, I didn't gender that person. I said I was in a 7-year relationship. It's so normal to be like, oh, am I going to get judged? Am I not queer enough? And I think it's really important to be like,
you're like code switching.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's so crazy that you have to do that within the LGBTQ community. Like, we're supposed to be open because of all of what we've gone through, and yet you find yourself having to not gender something so that you can be yourself. Like, that stinks.
Yeah, exactly.
But also you're owning it, and I really commend you for it. And it made me realize I need to own more things. So thanks, Ash. Always evolving.
So that was kind of when you found the poly side. Was it around the same time that you found the non-binary part of yourself, or was this all just kind of happening all at once? It's not like then this and then this. It's just kind of like an evolution of you.
Yeah, I mean, it did all, like, those kind of realizations happened around a similar time, in that I think being in that relationship with one person, we were very, very kind of our lives were very enmeshed. We lived together for the whole 7 years. And I think I didn't really have that opportunity to just explore who I am on my own as an adult as well, because we got together at 17. So I'd never been an adult alone. And then getting out and finding this community and finding other people who were more like me. And so meeting other non-binary people as well, and suddenly realizing that described my experience that I'd had my whole life. So it wasn't, you know, it doesn't feel like I changed, but I just found the terms to describe myself and became much more comfortable with who I am.
That's fabulous.
And so what happens from there? So you're living in this community, you're exploring relationships, and how do we get to the baby?
Yeah, so I think I had maybe 5 or 6 years of kind of just being really comfortable in exploring that, dating lots of different people, And being in my community in London. I was also doing a PhD, so that's like that was kind of taking up a lot of what I was doing. And then
Just I've
always wanted to have kids. It's been the thing that's been the constant. The only thing that hasn't really changed is that I know I've wanted kids, and the way that that's going to materialize for me has kind of changed over the years, but it's a certainty that I wanted it, and I was just waiting for that moment that I felt ready.
And when did you know you wanted to do it solo, the baby part? Or was that just, again, part of the realization?
I think it was part of just realizing that I was trying to imagine what romantic relationship I could have in which parenting would feel possible. And I'm not ruling it out in the future. Like, I think it is possible to combine romance with parenting. But it's just, sometimes I think, they're such different things, like being romantically and sexually compatible with someone and having compatible parenting values. They're just so different. What are the chances those things are going to align? And it's so great when people find that, and it is that it does align. And it does.
You know what, though, Ash? I think most people don't find that. I think you stumble along together is what happens.
And I think that's why many relationships break up when the kids hit like 7.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I guess, so for me, like, and you talk about intentionality a lot on this podcast. And I think, like, for me, I wanted to be intentional about, if I do end up sharing this journey with someone, I want the priority to be that we share parenting values, not that we fancy each other. Like, and so, I just thought that.
What an interesting concept. Like, what, like how, and it's ridiculous that we don't go into these things like that ever, that it's usually romance first and then let's see if we can parent together, It is interesting.
Well, that's the model. That's what we're told to do,
it's so
right?
funny.
Yeah.
And you're showing this other side, and it's like, oh, duh, what a great idea.
And I mean, it does work. Like, the thing is, it does often work. And I think, if you find that person that you're like, this is perfect, we share everything, it's great. And so I'm not ruling that out, and I'm not saying that's the wrong way to do it. Just for me, like, the way that I have romantic relationships, it just didn't feel like those two things would align. And I'd rather have my romantic relationships without an extra pressure of parenting, and then find other people in my life that I'm more happy to share. So, there's somebody in my life at the moment who's a really close friend, and she's been my kind of pregnancy support person and birth partner, and just been absolutely great for that. And we're not romantically involved, but she's so much more there for the parenting aspect specifically than a romantic partner that I have. So I think it's nice to have not one person doesn't have to provide all the things, basically.
And so this friend of yours she's kind of like your birth partner, does she plan on having any kind of relationship with the child, or we're just, for right now, helping me with the pregnancy and everything like that? And have you had a conversation about?
Yeah, that's right. So the primary thing is kind of pregnancy support, and also like kind of postpartum. She's going to come and stay with me for a few weeks after once the baby's born, and so there's that kind of postpartum support as well. But no, we're not co-parenting or anything. We'll see. And what I really want to do is leave things open. I'm not going to kind of put things in place and expect those things to be the same because once the baby's here, everything's going to change.
Yes.
So I just want to be really open about kind of who's going to be in this child's life as it kind of works out.
Yeah.
I feel like you're very laid back, and you're able to just be like, you're in my life for this, or you're in my life for that, or and it seems like you're very comfortable with not putting specific names or labels or boundaries or fences around people.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'd be really great at that. but it's like it just seems so second nature to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's taken a long time of getting, and I definitely, sometimes I find myself expecting more of a romantic partner, for example, than they're able to provide, and that creates friction and things like that. So it's definitely not like this smooth sailing thing. But I think knowing that when I do put too much expectation on someone, or they put too much expectation on me, that creates friction. I just want to avoid that. Generally, as a rule, obviously I can't always do that, but that's kind of how I want to play it.
This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. And listen, relationships take work, especially the most important one you can have in your life, Robin. Your relationship with yourself.
With yourself,
With
Jamie.
yourself. As parents, you know, we tend to push ourselves to the side in order to take care of the little ones. We always give ourselves the shaft, always, but we really shouldn't. We shouldn't.
I mean, Jamie, they do tell you to put your life mask on first on the plane for a reason.
They do.
You have to make sure you're taken care of before you can fully take care of others. Am I right,
You're
Jamie?
so right. You are so right. And it is hard to do. Like, if I don't go to the gym regularly, I am not a nice person.
Yeah, that's true. That's really true. And so this month, BetterHelp Online Therapy wants to remind you listeners that you matter just as much as everyone else does. And therapy is a great way to make sure that you show up for yourself. It's helped you and I, Jamie. It's helped Mary and I. It's helped Mary. Definitely helped Mary. And it helps our daughter.
Yeah, helps my daughter too.
It helps everybody.
Yeah, and it has helped Anne and I. It's such a good treat to give yourself. We need this. You need to be able to
really
talk
is.
it out.
Yeah, BetterHelp is online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist. So you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to.
And it's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can be matched with a therapist in under 48 hours.
Give it a try, everybody, and see why 2 million people, over 2 million people, have used BetterHelp Online Therapy.
Yeah, this podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp, and if these Ovaries Could Talk listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/OCT.
That's BetterHelp.com/OCT.
So, how did you get pregnant?
So my one of my closest friends who I've known for quite a few years now, Hollis, kind of offered to be my donor, kind of in an offhand way, like, because they knew that I really wanted to get pregnant at some point. So they just said, when that happens, you know, I would potentially be a donor, but we need to talk about it, but like keep it open as an option. And so then, yeah, it was a while. Once I've kind of had that switch of being like, not I want kids in the future, it's I want kids now. So I contacted them and said, is that something you'd still be happy to do? And they were like, I definitely want to explore it. I'm not sure. I'm about 50% sure whether I could do it or not. So we actually ended up doing therapy together. We got a kind of relationship therapist, did therapy together for about, we combined, did some therapy and we did some just us talking like every 2 weeks. We had our own like little mini therapy sessions and kind of came to a decision that actually this was something we could do.
What kind of things were you discussing? Like, what were the questions that you were like bandying about?
So I think one of the main things is how it would affect our relationship. So obviously we're really close friends, and whether that would have any kind of impact on our relationship going forward. Also how they would be in the child's life, you know, what they would be to the child. So we were both very clear that we would want them to be known to the child. Like that will be the child's donor. It'll all be out in the open. But also they don't want to parent and I don't want them to parent. So just kind of making sure we're on the same page with that and thinking, you know, if this thing came up, if I decide to move countries, how would that feel to them? Like, how will we check in? Like, how often do we want to check in about how this is feeling to us? What will we do if they have feelings coming up when the child is here and suddenly it's really complicated? Just trying to, you know, like we can't answer every possible question, but just trying to see how we'd feel about things that might come up.
Yeah. And do you see each other regularly?
Yeah, very regularly.
So they would be around the child when the child's around too.
Yeah, that's
if
right.
that continues. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, it helps, I think, that they live in a different city. So they live in a city about two hours away. So there's that kind of,
that is helpful.
Yeah, I think having that separation is good. But basically we came to the decision that if they'd be in the child's life, but not by virtue of being a donor, by virtue of being a close friend of mine. So in the same way that any of my close friends will be in this child's life to some degree or another, they'll be in it, but not because they're a donor. That doesn't give them kind of a special relationship, unless the child ultimately feels that that's something important.
Right.
We're open to that changing.
And so when you talk about your child's origin story with your child, that will be a part of the story, is that you have a donor and your donor is this person, and that's kind of the extent of it. And unless the child says, "Oh, I want to hang out with so and so."
Yeah, exactly.
And be closer.
Yeah, so I we're both very open to if the child finds that, because and you hear so many different stories of what children feel about having a donor.
Yes.
Some of them are like, I need to know everything about this donor, like this is my heritage, and other people are like, I don't care, this donor didn't raise me, like this is nothing.
Yes.
So we want to
you just never know.
Exactly.
Yeah, I have two kids with two totally different viewpoints toward it. Like one's really interested and one could give two craps about it at this point.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm open for either of those things being the case, and so is Hollis. And I think if they'd been really inflexible about that, if they'd said, I absolutely do not want a relationship with the child, whatever happens, I think that might have been difficult for me. And also if they'd said, I want to be this specific relationship to the child, that wouldn't have worked for me. I think just having that flexibility based on really letting the child take the lead is what we both want.
Yeah. And now, did you put anything in writing? I know Robin wants to ask this. And I jumped. Everybody knows what Robin wants to ask. Did you get anything in writing? Did you get any lawyers involved?
Yeah. So in the UK, I don't know, might be different in America, but in the UK, the law is, so obviously I won't name them on the birth certificate, so they won't be kind of a legal, I mean, it would be father, even though they're non-binary, but they won't be a kind of legal father. But they still, the rights that they would have would be kind of requesting visitation and custody if they wanted to. And what I would have would be requesting child support. So to kind of avoid that happening to whatever extent we can, we wrote a sperm donor agreement, which basically it's like a prenup in that it's not legally binding, but it's used as evidence in court.
That's the same as here.
If it comes to it, right? Yeah. If it comes down to it, you have this, and it's used as evidence.
Exactly. So if I then somewhere down the line decided to sue them for child support, we both have these copies of this sperm donor agreement where we've both signed with witnesses saying that I'm not going to do that. So it would likely be thrown out.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah, that's in our country. It depends on the state and it depends on the judge you get. But we're always telling our listeners, I am in particular, not that Jamie's not, but like I'm insane about it, to make sure you have it in writing, because you don't know what kind of judge you're going to get. And you, like if you live in the South or if you live in a more conservative area, you're risking, and you just never know. You never know, like something could happen to that person and their parents could come in and try to claim custody. Like sometimes people get crazy. You just never know what someone's going to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we wanted to cover all bases. We didn't.
And you seem like you have been extremely intentional. I mean, you went to therapy for crying sake. How many? I mean, I don't. Not to be down on the heterosexuals, but how many heterosexual couples do you think go to therapy before they get pregnant? Maybe a lot of them.
Well, it is a specific situation with their best friend.
It's true. It's true.
But it's true.
Instead, we make movies and we make rom-coms about it with Julia Roberts. It's totally different.
This is a good rom-com, actually. This is a good modern day rom-com.
Yeah, it's without the romance, isn't it? Like, there's no. It's like got everything but the romance.
Yeah,
it really does.
So you do all the stuff, you get the stuff in writing, and how did you get pregnant?
So we actually had sex, which is wild, because I know.
Wait, hold the
it
phone.
turns out that you can do that.
You can do that without romance
to get pregnant. Like, we hear
I feel like that's the one question I didn't ask in the pre-call, and I am now. You could knock me off my chair.
I know.
It's like a delayed reaction. Robin, you had such a delayed reaction to that, too.
Because I was processing. I was like, wait,
it's so funny.
Did they just say that?
Oh my God, I'm jealous. And you got to do it.
Like, this is the best.
It's so weird because I have a lot of shame about it. And some of it is.
No.
Why?
Well, it's the biphobia thing again, the internalized biphobia, where it's like, and also just this kind of like, as queers, we don't have sex to get pregnant. It's like not the done thing. And it almost feels like really naughty.
You cheated.
And weird to have sex to get pregnant.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
It's
That's
like you
amazing.
get to.
You get to. We're all jealous. We're all sitting over here like quietly jealous that you
I
got to
know.
actually do it the old-fashioned way. You baby danced.
Exactly.
And-
Yeah, exactly.
But I need to know, did it get weird? Because this was a friend of yours.
Yeah,
And like,
wait.
were you guys like, did you talk about like, are we going to make out? Are we just going to do it? Is there going to be foreplay? Like,
No,
I
Oh
just,
my God. Had this all happened before, and I
Yeah.
can't believe you just asked if there was foreplay,
Yeah,
Robin.
I know.
let them answer it,
Like,
Jamie.
Oh my
Let them answer that question.
Okay, all right, okay, okay.
So I had like we had like a sexual relationship anyway.
Okay.
I have,
Mm-hmm.
and
Oh,
that's
okay,
not
all
so
right.
not a romantic relationship, but I have sex with quite a few of my friends. It's something that in this kind of polyamorous community we
sounds
have
fun.
sex with
Jamie,
people.
we got to
like,
get in the polyamorous
it's-
community.
I'm not
it
doing
wrong.
that with you, Robin. That's
No, Jamie. Stop it. Got weird. Go ahead, Em.
So sex doesn't like feel like this super loaded thing that, are we going to cross a boundary because we're friends? We were already having sex. And so
Okay,
when
yeah.
we talked about it, we were thinking like, oh, well, how are we going to do this logistically? And we were almost like, well, it would kind of be weird if we didn't have sex, because we'd be there with the
Right.
turkey baster and then we'd be like, okay, we're done now. Do you want to have sex? Like that would
Have
be
sex?
like that would be what we might do with that evening. So it just felt like
Should we just triple check it got in there by having
Should
sex?
just do it.
What do you think?
How funny would it be if you actually had turkey basted it though?
I
Like
know.
just because
then
you want to
that's
do
after,
it
that's
because
the
you want to do it
best.
the gay way,
Exactly. So it's not like I realize, in some friendships it would be loaded and it would be like, are we crossing into romance here? But I've got lots of platonic friends that I have sex with just as a thing that's nice to share with each other. So
Hey.
it felt right to do it that way.
And right away, did you?
Yes,
Or was
okay.
this
How many?
become a monthly thing, or?
As it
Did it happen?
yeah, so I like timed my ovulation. I did all of the, with the peeing on the sticks. I peed on so many sticks for like
I know
4
it.
months of
I
my
know
life.
it.
I was peeing
I
on
know
sticks
it.
all the time. And then
Did you take your basal body temperature too?
no, I
or
used
you
the Ava bracelet, which I don't know if you've heard of that.
Okay.
It's like a bracelet that takes your like skin temperature and all these different things, and
Oh,
it tracks your ovulation, and it worked really well for me. I used it alongside the stretch.
I think we have heard of that. I think we did
Yeah.
a commercial for it.
Oh, really?
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you should know that. And so we just kind of organize it. So obviously they live in a different city. So I took 2 or 3 days off work and went and visited them in the city. And yeah, it only took 2 months, which was wild. We
Wow.
had 2 months of trying, and then yeah, it worked, and I was so
And what
shocked.
was it like? Oh yeah, what was it like the moment it worked? Because when it happens that fast, I feel
Yeah.
like there's a huge shock right there.
Yeah.
That's Robin's had that. It never happened to me. I didn't have anything happen
Yeah.
fast like
I
that.
got pregnant the very first time, and it was
Yeah.
like, what?
Yeah, I think you hear so many people it taking so long, and I just was so ready for it being like a year-long thing, and I was just like
Mhm.
settled into it, ready, sitting back. But I just didn't believe that I was even going to be pregnant.
Yeah.
Like it just wasn't. And so that first day, I had loads of those little like cheap pregnancy tests,
Oh
and I
yeah.
took about 10 that first day.
You're like, no.
And then
Yes? No.
and then the next 3 weeks, I almost compulsively, like I took more pregnancy tests than there were days, like just multiple tests a day. Like just
kept
this
doing it.
cannot be true.
It can't have worked. I couldn't have baby danced and actually made a baby.
Exactly.
Like, no way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's really exciting.
I almost wished it had taken longer so that you ended up with like that straight experience of like, oh, we gotta have
Yeah.
sex again. Here we go.
Exactly.
Like so that you could have
Such a
flipped
chore.
every stereotype on its head.
Yeah.
Like I just love
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
So Jamie, the traditional guidance with fertility has always been just wait and see.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is that doesn't work for our families. If we wait and see, nothing will happen.
Truth.
And we always need a bit of help when it comes to making babies.
It's so true. And if only we could wait and see. If only.
Can you imagine?
Can you imagine the strife it would take away? It would be what a game changer. But that's not the case. And that's why modern fertility was created. Instead of waiting and seeing, modern fertility makes it easy and affordable to test your fertility hormones with a simple finger prick. You
Mhm.
mail it in with a prepaid label and you get your results within 10 days. It's that easy.
Yes, it really is. And we all know that traditional testing with your doctor, it can cost thousands. But modern fertility only costs $159, which is a fraction of that price if you are not good at math. And if you go to modernfertility.com/OCT, you're going to get another $20 off that price.
It's just beautiful. You're going to get insight into your hormone levels, how many eggs you have, other important fertility factors. And the results go deep into what every hormone means. And you can also talk one-on-one with a fertility nurse to review your results and options for next steps.
And if you want kids today or maybe one day in the future, clinically sound info about your body, it's going to help you make the decision that's right for you.
Yep. So right now, Modern Fertility is offering our listeners $20 off the test when you go to modernfertility.com/OCT.
That means your test will cost $139 instead of the several hundred or even $1,000+ bucks it would cost at the doctor's office.
Yes. So get $20 off your fertility test when you go to modernfertility.com/OCT.
modernfertility.com/OCT.
I feel like we need to sing that. modernfertility.com/OCT. So when did you tell them?
I told them as soon as I found out. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
On the first test or the 400th test? Because that was all pretty
no,
close.
that was all.
All in one day.
No, I told my birth partner first because we'd already decided that she was going to be my birth partner. So she was the first person that I told. And then, I texted Hollis pretty much straight after as well.
And everybody's excited and everything is wonderful. I mean, so now you're pregnant, and how's it going? How did it go in the beginning? I mean,
yeah, I mean, I know that you've both said on the podcast that you thought you'd really enjoy pregnancy and you thought you'd be like, this is going to be great. I thought exactly the same thing. I was like, I've always wanted to be pregnant. It's going to be great. I'm not going to care about any of the symptoms because I'm going to have a kid. And it turns out, no, you're right. Pregnancy is terrible.
It's so hard.
It's really
It's so
hard.
It's so hard.
I mean, just more people need to talk about the toll it takes on you. And God bless those people who it's just natural and they love it and they glow. God bless you. I'm not taking anything away from your experience. However, I think that it's misleading for that to be the idea of what it's going to be.
Yeah.
It's people need to understand that there's just as many of us out here where it's a struggle.
Yeah. And I think it's just such a big change for your body, especially like I'm really used to being really active. Like I was a builder before I got pregnant. And so I was like really used to be able to use my body all the time and like lift heavy things and do it. And now I'm just not able to do that. And it's quite limiting and it's really weird. And also the mental health impact's been really intense. Like the first like 19 weeks, I had just such severe anxiety. It was really, really intense. Yeah.
I experienced that too. I had panic attacks during both my pregnancies.
Yeah.
While I was asleep.
Why do you think that is? Do you think it's like
it's estrogen?
Yeah. I think it's a hormonal thing. Yeah. Yeah. Cause I had it when I was on birth control years ago. I took like hormonal birth control when I was a teenager and I had quite similar symptoms. So I think it's hormonal, but it's funny because they say about postnatal depression and anxiety all the time, but actually antenatal depression and anxiety barely gets talked about. When I spoke to, I'm seeing a specialist mental health midwife now because it's provided as part of the care here if you've got any symptoms, which is really great. And she said it's actually more common to have antenatal anxiety and depression than it is to have postnatal.
Never
which I
talked
didn't realize.
Never talked about. It's really it's women's health.
Yeah.
We're just supposed to just grin and bear it.
Yeah.
Or I should say people with uteruses health.
Exactly.
Because it's not just women's health. And it's frustrating and it's effed up to be real. I didn't swear there. I don't know why.
That's an odd self-censor. Ash, talk about so you're about to become, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong on this, like you're a solo parent, but it doesn't feel like you really are. It feels like you have this community. Like I'm sort of envisioning your life like remember that game Trivial Pursuit? And there's the little pies, like the little pieces. And when you went through one section, you put a piece in it's like, it feels like you have all these pieces of pie around you and support. So it almost doesn't feel like you're solo parenting.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I feel in some ways like less isolated than some of my friends who I know who have had, and some of my family members who have kind of gone the nuclear family route, where it's just them and their partner, no other support. And I've got a lot of people around me that I feel like, this whole time I've not had to cook a single meal for myself, because all of these people, they've got this whole like WhatsApp group meal train going where they're sending freezer meals every week. It's amazing.
Oh my God,
I feel
that's
so
incredible.
supported. I feel it's and I didn't know that I would be this supported. Like I thought maybe, none of the other people in the community kind of I mean, there's a couple of kids in the community, but it's more, most people are child free. And so I thought, it might be that I make this decision and that's me separating off from the community. My life is becoming too different to theirs. But actually, everybody's been like, yes, you're bringing a baby to the queers. Like we all get a baby. And it's just so nice.
You get a baby. You get a baby.
So everybody's just been totally like really, really supportive of it. And it's been really nice.
That's
my God, you could turn that WhatsApp group into a babysitting group.
Right.
From meals to babysitting.
Right.
That's gonna be a game changer.
You're gonna need to hold on to them. Hold on.
I know.
You're gonna need to sleep.
Yeah, exactly.
So what do you plan on the baby calling you? Have you thought about that? You're not gonna be mom.
No,
are you gonna be
exactly.
mom?
No. And it's one of the things. It's one of the things I've really struggled with, actually, because mum or dad doesn't feel right. They're very gendered terms. I'm not a woman, and it just doesn't. It doesn't feel right. But annoyingly, they've got so much kind of like baggage around in a good way. They've got like this whole identity attached to these words, and there's a bunch of new, not like kind of gender neutral parent names out there, like Zaza and Baba and like Nini and all these things. And I've got a couple of friends who use them, but for me, I just they don't have that attachment that like mum and dad does. They don't signify I am a parent. I am a special.
This is my little person.
To you.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so I've really struggled with that. And I think the only way that I'm gonna kind of be able to get around that is for the kid to come up with something for me. So if they start naturally calling me something, whatever that is, and it may end up being mama or whatever.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. What if it is? What if it's mama?
Then it will feel right.
Or dad.
Because it's for me. Like they've come up with it for me. It specifies our relationship. I think rather than being this kind of very gendered term that's just there already. If they come up with that, then it will be specifically about their relationship to me. So, but obviously I'd like it, if it's something else that they come up with. And I think the thing that I'm going to have to be really strict on is other people calling me mum, say, oh, bring your mummy that cup or whatever, that it's going to be hard to kind of enforce that I'm not called mum by other people. That is really tough.
Yeah. It's like my daughter has a Lovey that she's had since birth, and she named it. Well, actually, no, I guess we came up with the name because she would be screaming and we'd be like, "Where's the guy? Get the guy! Get the guy!" So she calls it. She calls it Guy. The name of it's Guy, and everybody's like, "What is it? A boy?" We're like, "No, it's just Guy. It's Guy. It's just Guy."
That's amazing.
Yeah, but you know what? I had a blanket, and I called it my nice. So the kids do come up with names for things.
This is the thing. Like my cousin has 2 kids, and when the oldest was really young, that the grandma wanted to be called Granny and said they all called her Granny, and the kid just immediately called her Di. Like nobody knows where it came from, but Di is her name.
That's what it was.
And now now the youngest calls her Di, and she is just, that's her like kind of grandma identity now. It's Di.
Yeah.
And I think that that could well happen with a kind of random name that the kid comes up for me. So
yeah, but you're right though. You are going to have to police it with other people, especially. I mean, it starts right in the hospital.
Yeah,
it's going to be like nurses never know your name,
go,
so they always say mom.
Oh yeah,
because they just they see hundreds and thousands of them. So you will have to figure that out, and because that is what the kid will pick up on too. So
it's also nothing new for you because you've had to police people with your terms probably for a long time.
Probably,
Although
right?
it's kind of what you guys say a lot as well, where once you're a parent, you have to come out so much more, and you can't choose whether you're coming out or not. And so a lot of the time, if I'm in a shop and somebody says, "Oh, move out for that lady" or whatever, move out the way for that lady, I'm not going to say, "Actually, I'm non-binary." I just leave it.
For that person.
Exactly. You know,
Thank you very much, person.
You don't, you choose your battles and you're like, okay, I'm not going to. But once I have a kid, I'm going to have to come out more. Because I don't want people calling me mum around the kid. Like, I want them to know that my pronouns are they, and
that you're proud of it.
And that I'm proud. Exactly. And that I'm not, that I am okay with that. I'm not ashamed of being non-binary. And it's hard because a lot of the time it doesn't feel safe or comfortable to come out. Right. You'd rather just let it go.
Mm-hmm. And the good news is that the kids, like, it'll just become part of them. Like, so my daughter's 12 now, and she's kind of using they, them, and she, but she's doing the they, them. It feels like an allyship sort of thing, or like, because she's like, there's everything about her is 100% feminine. And so she started this conversation about the pronouns in the cab the other night in front of the cab driver. And she had nothing, and this is like a 10-minute conversation because I was trying to understand what it meant for her. I said, are you doing this in support? I said, is there a part of you that feels like boy-like? Is there a part of you? I said, or do you feel like no gender, or do you just feel like gender's a construct and it doesn't mean anything? She was like that. But then she expounded on it. All that's happening in the cab and with the Lyft driver just looking back at us. And I was just like, she has no shame. And I love it.
Yeah.
And that's from the constant coming out.
Exactly. And I think that generation as well, I think I worry, like, oh, is it going to be confusing for my kid that they don't have a mum or a dad and they just, they have a parent? Like, is that going to, and then like, actually it's like our generation and above that find it difficult.
I'm more confused than she is.
They're totally unstressed by it. Like, it's fine. And so
why? I mean, it should just be parent. I'm a parent. It doesn't have, why do we gender this shit?
Yeah.
It's really ridiculous when you really think about it.
Yeah.
Why is everything so freaking gendered?
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
Yeah. And I do get, for some people, it does really matter. And I think all it should be, all of the options should be there. Like, I don't advocate for all parents only using the word parent and like deleting the word mother and father from the lexicon, because actually for some people that identity is really, really important. But I just want all of those options to be available. Like, I want to be a parent and that be okay. And
you
that
want
be
one
enough.
That's equal, that fits for someone who's non-binary or for you.
Yeah.
But you want it to have the equal weight.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yes. Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Woo. Well, this is so wonderful. I mean, I am so glad you reached out because you were like, your story hasn't been shared on our podcast, or, I mean, I've never heard your story elsewhere. And it's so important that you shared it.
Oh, I'm really glad.
Because I'm sure you're not the only one. You're not the only one out there who, there might be somebody going this path right as we speak who's like, oh my God, my story.
And that's when we get the emails saying, can I please reach out to Ash? And I go, Ash.
Yeah, totally.
We will definitely get that. Get that. Will you keep us posted on how delivery and the baby and all that goes? We can't wait to hear more.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm excited. It's like I'm almost there now, over halfway. So it's happening.
You're so close.
You're so close. You're very, very close.
This is that moment where everybody always goes to you, it's just flying by, isn't it? And you're like, no, it is not.
Exactly.
Might be for you, but is it for me?
It's you got a journey to go, but you'll be there soon.
Exactly.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. Aw.
Ash.
I mean, I love how they know exactly what they want, and they have such clear delineations about what relationships mean to them and in what context and what they want from them. Like, that is such a, it's such emotional maturity, and it's just, I don't know, talk about knowing yourself.
Having it together, right?
Yeah.
And they're leading their parenting with the "It takes a village" motto.
Yes.
And that really does feel like a good motto to have for parenting.
Right.
Let's be real.
I need a
freaking village.
We need a bigger village.
I need a much bigger village at this point in my life. Somebody take my dog. No, I'm just kidding. I don't want somebody to take my dog, but somebody take care of somebody train my dog.
Someone does need to train that dog. Stop eating everything.
I'm working on it.
All right. Anyway, listen, folks, do you have thoughts on today's episode or anything ovaries related? We've got exciting new news. You can go to sayhi.chat/ovaries, and then you can leave us a voice memo up to 60 seconds, and then we might use it in an episode. So go do that.
That would be so fun. Send us a voice memo. We'd love to hear from you.
Yes.
And also, don't forget, our next live stream is this Thursday, February 24th at 4 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be talking to someone from Delune about pinpointing simple things we can all do to optimize our fertility.
Mhm.
So we're going to talk strategies for hormonal balance, the science behind menstrual symptoms, and all that jazz. And my dog is trying to open the door right now. Do you hear it?
If you missed it, you can catch it on our YouTube page later. All right. Before Jamie's dog
We
eats
have to get
everything
back in
her
the studio,
house,
Robin. We have to get back in the studio.
we are at Ovaries Talk on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. And if these ovaries could talk on YouTube, you can support our podcast and join our community on Patreon, patreon.com/ovaries talk. Don't forget, you get that bonus content.
Get that bonus content. And, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. And thanks for putting up with me and
Jamie's
my dog.
And thanks to our sponsors, BetterHelp and Modern Fertility. And a huge thank you to all you patrons who are already helping us make this show. We appreciate you. We thank you.
So
we
much.
love you.
Thank you. Yes. And now, without further ado, I have to take my dog for a walk.
Take the dog to pee. Out.
Out. Oh, my God.